Okay, now I am going to start to construct the shell of the book. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut my chipboard. Now, since the pages are going to be 8 by 8, I know that I want my front and my back covers to have a 1/2 inch overhang on the top and the bottom, and also a 1/2 inch overhang on the right side of the book. So I am going to cut my front and my back covers. Let's see. So it would be 9 inches in height. By 8.5 inches in width. So I gotta do another piece. So 9 inches in height. By 8.5 in width. All right, now I also know that my spine needs to be 9 inches in height, but I need to measure how wide I need to make it based on my hinging system here. So it looks like I need the spine piece to be 9 inches in height by 1, 2, 3, 4 by 3 5/8 in width. Okay. So 9 inches tall. Come on. Hard to get through this chipboard. By 3 5/8. Actually, I wonder. I'm going to measure. I probably should have done this before I already cut into it, but nope, it's just a little bit too narrow. All right, 3 5/8. Rid of my scrap pieces here. Oops. Hold on, I think maybe I screwed up. Oops. 8.5 by just under 9. This paper trimmer here drives me crazy because it stops your lines at 8 1/4, so you just kind of have to guess. I could measure going back this way, but I never do. To me, that's just as big of a pain. All right. All right, so we're good to go here. Make sure that I have a wide enough piece here. That looks good. And what's nice is that I actually do want it just a hair narrower than the hinge system here. And the reason is because if there's chipboard that's blocking where the score lines are, then these hinges aren't going to want to flip. They're going to be really stiff, and then the front and back covers aren't going to want to open very smoothly. All right, I'm going to set my hinges aside, and then next I'm going to cut my paper that I'm going to use to wrap the shell. And actually, all I really need to do for cutting it is just trim off that little piece there with the company logo on it and such. A little margin area. And I'm going to set this aside just for a second. And I want the texturing on the outside, so I'm going to flip it with the bad side up. Okay. And I just want to take a look here. I want some overhang because what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap the paper around the chipboard. So what I want to do is just overlap these two 12 by 12 sheets just a little bit, because I'm going to tape them together. And then actually I'll probably run some glue along there too, so it's good and stuck. And I want to leave about 1/8 of an inch of a gap between the front cover chipboard piece and the spine piece, and 1/8 of an inch gap between the back cover piece and the spine. Oops, this way. Okay, and I want to slide everything this way just a little bit because I'd like to have the same amount of paper to work with. Okay, so that way I know where I want to overlap the pages. So I'm going to grab my pencil here, and I'm just going to mark here where I want to attach the two pages. And then I am going to put some of the double-sided tape on one of the pieces of paper. And I'm going to grab my bone folder, and I am just going to burnish that a little bit to make sure it's really stuck down. And then trim off the excess. Alright, and actually, yeah, I think maybe I will put some glue on there too. I don't know if I trust this tape or not to stay stuck. Anyway, this is the kind of glue that I use. It's the Alien's Original Tacky Glue. And I'm just going to put a little bit over the top of where I taped, just in case the tape doesn't want to stick. Since it's supposed to be holding those two sheets together, I want it to stay together. All right. And then I'm going to line those back up with the lines that I made. And then just stick them down. All right, now I am going to grab my chipboard. And I am going to put some double-sided tape on those. And I'm just going to do several pieces on the whole thing. All right. And I am just going to pull the tape backing off. I am going to stick the front cover sheet probably about an inch from the left side of the page, and then just kind of center it between the top and the bottom margins there. And I'm just going to stick it down. Okay. All right, and then I'm also gonna put the two-sided tape on the spine piece and the back cover piece, but I'm not gonna make you watch me do that. I'm just gonna do it, and then I'll be back and show you what I do with the rest. Okay, so I have my chipboard pieces taped up here. So first I'm gonna stick the spine piece down, so I just want to pull the backing off. Okay, and I want to leave about 1/8 of an inch of a gap between the front cover piece and the spine in order for the book to open freely so it doesn't get stuck. And then stick that down. And then take the tape off the back piece. And then again, leave about an 1/8 of an inch gap between the spine piece and the back cover. Plop that down. All right. Now, I'm not going to score lines here because I don't want the paper to rip because it's so thick, and that's a danger that you take, or that you possibly can have happen when you use this thicker cardstock, is that it'll rip when you bend it or fold it. So I am going to take the whole piece here. Actually, let me do it towards me so I'm not blocking the camera here. And I am going to just very gently fold it, pull it towards me so it creates a bit of a crease. Okay, and then I'm going to do this side. I'm going to do the same thing. Oops. Let me get in frame here. I don't have that big of a desk, so I'm going to have to try and stay in frame here. I'm just going to gently crease this side here, and then on the other side do the same thing. All right, now because I'm going to wrap it, I need to miter the corners. Now some people use, a ruler to do this. I usually just kind of eyeball it. Let's see. I mean, like I've seen people, plop the ruler on there and do it this way, and I could do it that way. Actually, yeah, why don't I do it that way? That way you can get an idea of what some people you do. So what I want to do is make sure that I leave between probably about 1/8 of an inch and 1/4 of an inch of paper that's right here on the corner piece, make sure it comes out a little bit, because you don't want to cut the paper flush to the chipboard, because then you won't have any paper to actually wrap around this little corner piece. So I'm going to come just out a bit with the ruler here. And then I am just going to cut that corner piece right off. And I'm going to do that on every one of the corners. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the double-sided tape here, and I'm going to tape all the way around the chipboard on the yellow paper. Okay? And I will be right back as soon as I get that done. Okay, so I've got all the edges taped up now, and I went over them with my bone folder to make sure they were good and stuck, and then I took my craft knife and just sliced off the excess tape, and now I'm ready to start pulling it off. Now I'm going to stick down the long edges first, because when I get to the corners, I'm going to have to futz around a little bit with the mitering. So it's easier to do that with the short pieces than the long pieces here. So I am just going to go ahead and gently crease this down over the top of the chipboard, and then stick it down. Take my bone folder and go over it. And then flip it all around and do the other side. Worry too much about that little crease, because it's going to be covered up with paper anyway, but it's still irritating. All right, take my bone folder again. Okay, now when you get to the corners here, actually, before I do that, so I can fold it a little bit easier and get in camera, I'm going to just gently bring my front cover up here and kind of do this, and then do the same thing with the back cover. Just gently give it a crease there. And then when you go to stick down the short edges, what you do is you just take your, and I'll try and zoom in on this when I'm editing the video, but you take your bone folder and you just kind of gently push on the paper, push it in towards the chipboard right at the corner, so it's kind of creased in a little bit. You do that on both sides. So it's basically, you're just kind of wrapping the paper up around that corner a little bit. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and stick this paper down. And it takes a little bit of futzing with the bone folder to get that corner to lay nice and flat so it's not too bulky. I'm just going to kind of go along the edge here with the bone folder as I stick it down. I think I might actually go over, I'm going to stick some glue in there too because it doesn't look like this tape is going to want to stick down on the edges. So I'm going to pop some glue in there too. I usually do glue a lot in these mini albums, just simply because I think it sticks better, but for time's sake, I'm going to be using a lot of tape for this one because I'm recording it. All right, stick some glue on the other side. All right, now I got to repeat the process on the other side. So I'm just going to take my bone folder and kind of just work that paper in towards the corner piece there. I don't want to stress out too much about the corners because I might actually end up putting metal corner pieces on here. But just in case, I want it to look halfway decent, just in case I don't. Pop some glue on there. Okay, now your outer shell is done here. There you've got the outside of your mini album. Going to be a good size mini album, put lots of stuff in. Okay, I will be back with the next step. So now I'm going to get the spine piece ready to stick down inside the book. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with backing this whole piece here with some Tyvek. And I usually end up using a piece of a Tyvek envelope. They are actually quite pricey in the office supply store. So, I mean, if you really want to go the cheap route, just go to the post office and pick up some of their free mailing supplies because they have Tyvek envelopes. Doesn't matter if it's got print on it or not because it's all going to be covered up. So I didn't tell you that. So I am going to need a piece. Okay. Now I want to make it slightly shorter than the actual hinge piece because I don't want it showing on the outside edges for the top and the bottom of the top and the bottom of the hinge piece. So the hinge piece itself is, might help if I have the ruler go in the right direction. All right, so the hinge piece is 7.5 inches in height. So I am going to cut the Tyvek piece at 7.25. So it's just a hair under the height of the hinge piece, so it's not showing. And the width doesn't matter because that's going to be covered up with paper anyway. So I'm just going to go ahead and make it a little bit wider than the hinge piece. So the total hinge piece with the flaps included is 6 1/8 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to go ahead and cut it at 7 inches in width. So what was it that I said? 7.25 by height by 7 inches in width. Let's see, how wide do we have it here? All right, I'm going to have to open the envelope up. So I'm going to have to slice it open here. So I can do that. So I'm just slicing off a couple of edges so I can open it up. And I'm just going to get rid of that little flap piece there. All right, so what'd I say? 7 inches by 7.25. So there you can see it's just a little bit shorter than the hinge piece and a little bit wider. So it's perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape the hinge piece to the Tyvek. I got little pieces of sticky tape all over the place. So I am going to head and get this taped up. Let's see. I'm probably going to tape the Tyvek since it's shorter than the hinge piece. And you probably don't want to see me taking the time to put tape all over this, so I'm going to stop the camera again, and then when I have it taped up, I'll come back. Alrighty, so I have the Tyvek all taped up, and now I'm going to pull the backing off. And I've decided I'm also going to put some glue on this because I don't know that I trust this tape to hold it once I get the pages on and it gets really heavy. Now I'm going to take the hinge piece and I'm going to stick it down. Try and get it centered the best I can on there. And I'm kind of gently pulling on the accordion here to make sure that it's laying flat, because it does kind of tend to want to fold up on you. So I'm going down in between the hinges into the gussets here and pressing down. I'm going to do the same thing with my bone folder here. Flip it over. Looks like it's laying pretty flat. Alright, so now you've got a pretty good sturdy backing for your hinge piece. So then the next step is going to be to put this hinge piece on the spine here in the shell. And so I think I'm probably going to use tape and glue on this as well. So I am going to go ahead and go off camera and tape this up again, and then I will be back. Alright, so I've got the back of the Tyvek and the hinge piece all taped up. So I'm going to pull the backing off. Now I've got that all taped up and glued up, so I'm going to flip it over here. Let me stand up here because I want to make sure I get this good and centered. Because I want to make sure that the hinges here are not going to be accidentally covering up the creases that I have for my front and my back covers. Because I want the book to be able to open smoothly, or at least line up the creases. Looks like that's what I'm going to have to do here. Okay. I grab my bone folder again, just kind of run it over the paper here. Okay. Looks like it's good and stuck down there. And once that glue dries, it should be in pretty good shape. All right, let's see here. A little tight here, but don't want it to be too loose. That's not too bad. Once it gets used, it'll loosen up a little bit. All right, I think I am going to stop messing with it right now and let that glue dry. And see, all this stuff sticking out here isn't going to matter because it's going to all be covered up once we get the paper cut, the designer paper cut for the inside cover, front and back. So I will be back, and the next thing I'm going to do is start cutting the paper for the pages. So I'll catch you in a bit.